Behold the Death Knight, one of Baldur's Gate 3's strongest builds. The Death Knight mingles the power of the storm together with its divine might and perpetual pursuit for vengeance. Through its magic, this guy can annihilate foes from afar, unleashing bolts of lightning that sear through armor and scorch flesh, while engaging foes up front with its colossal weapon imbued with the wrath of the unholy. Each swing strikes fear into the hearts of even the bravest enemies, and a second or so later, they die. This Death Knight can even fly every single turn, to be everywhere at any time. And how is that possible, right? Well, what do you get when you combine a Sorcerer and a Paladin all in one? You get a build so powerful that you can have a field day even on Honor mode. And that's exactly what's going to happen today. My Death Knight is a Sorcadin multi-class build, nicely and evenly 6-6 spread to get, in my opinion, the best and most fun Sorcadin build. What is a Sorcadin? Well, it's just a Sorcerer and a Paladin mixed together, basically a hybrid between a mage and a fighter-esque type of character. Before we proceed, if you're familiar with my previous builds, you might know that I have also written and fully indexed guides of these builds on my Patreon as well, so check that out if you're interested in written guides. And if you're still not subscribed, hit that button right now, it is free. In what order do you want to get the levels? Well, Paladin's early game is a lot stronger than a Sorcerer's early game, as Sorcerers will still be in the process of building up their Nova damage and getting more spell slots, unlocking all those things, while Paladins are, you know, Paladins. Good spells, smites, and great weapon options to already get OP as early as Act 1. We also get the first level in Paladin for the better HP scaling, as well as what's going to be very important, the heavy armor proficiency, which is going to make us ungodly tanky. So 6 levels Paladin, then 6 levels Sorcerers, and then we're level 12. Done. Now, what are the benefits of mixing Sorcerer with Paladin, I hear you asking? You might remember that I have some very powerful Paladin pure or multi-class builds on my channel, and also made some very powerful Sorcerer builds. But what makes this combination so nice? Well, in my opinion, it's the following 5 things. Reason number 1. Sorcerer is considered a full caster, so becoming a hybrid build like this gives you all those extra juicy spell slots, and thus a lot more smiting and turn 1 nukes with the Paladin in you. And you get a nice level 5 spell slot as well, which you can use for a lot of different things. Reason number 2. The mix gives you an insanely powerful all-round monster. You dish out insane damage, but you mitigate a lot of incoming damage as well. We're talking utility as well as the combination of various defensive properties from both classes that then results in a very powerful tanky guy or girl that will just never die. Reason number 3. Sorcery points that allow you to twin powerful buffs that we will have, definitely, or to use quickened magic to do a lot of damage in one turn. There's a lot of synergy there to be found as well. And if you just want to smite more, you can convert your sorcery points into even more spell slots. Spell slots, spell slots, spell slots. And reason number 4, the Sorcerer in you adds a bunch of AoE damaging potential, and on top of that, powerful spells that you otherwise couldn't possibly get, and makes you an absolute threat both in the distance as well as right up front as a tanky frontliner, giving you huge area coverage in combat and makes you pretty much the ultimate all-round build. And finally, reason number 5. The mobility gets really insane. We will be able to fly pretty much every turn if we want, or teleport and be all over the battlefield to control the flow of the battle, as well as make advantage number 4 on the list even better as well. What's also important is making sure that you play great games like Baldur's Gate 3 on high quality screen so you can truly appreciate all the details, like the LG Ultra Gear 45G S95QE for example, and thanks to LG for sponsoring today's video. Now this monitor is a 45-inch 800R OLED curved gaming monitor with 240Hz refresh rate and a 0.03 millisecond response time, so you might already be hearing it. It has all the right technical aspects for it being an amazing gaming monitor, but due to it being a 45-inch 21:9 aspect ratio monitor, it will also really bring home that immersiveness aspect. And 45-inch OLED is bigger than the popular 49-inch OLED alternative, with 45-inch on a 21:9 aspect ratio, granting you more screen area than a 49-inch screen at a 32:9 aspect ratio. And obviously that is another huge benefit. Due to the built-in technology, it also comes with impeccable image detail in dark screens for both gaming and streaming, which will result into a stunning visual experience. But this monitor has also adopted MLA+, which will bring more brightness. So overall, everything combined, you will get an amazing visual and gaming experience with this monitor. And LG Ultra Gear is also releasing a new 27-inch 480Hz OLED gaming monitor for the competitive gamers out there with 2.1 DisplayPort for the connectivity. So what are you waiting for? Check both monitors out using my link in the description right now. So behold our Storm Death Knight's unbreakable will. Whatever is going to face this guy, well, let's say they are left in awe of the relentless fury that will be bestowed upon them. Let's get right into the mother build. I already said we will start as a Paladin. Which race though, do I hear you asking? Well, like in real life, it doesn't really matter that much, but in this case, I'm going to probably hype up the half-orc, as its savage attacks and endless endurance are directly one-to-one extremely good for this build, providing sustain as being a frontliner, but also giving us extra damage with critical hits, and with this build, we will have a lot of opportunities at proccing those crit hits. So, probably my favorite option here. If you think half-orcs are not the most beautiful type of guys, girls, well, Jurger is great too. Multiple useful properties as well as a juicy and large, granting you more damage too. If you are racist against our dwarf friends, well, wood half-elf and wood elf with the extra movement are good options too. So in the end, it doesn't really matter. Half-orc is going to be my personal choice, but after you've chosen your race, I would say thematically the Dark Urge is a good character background for this type of build and gets you a pretty nice cloak in Act 1. Regarding the Oath, we only have one option really, both thematically and gameplay wise. The Oath of Vengeance. And why do I say gameplay wise? Well, it's going to give us some really good spells that we will use, as well as amazing channel oaths. And starting off right away with Inquisitor's Might, which will grant us more damage and an ingrained soft CC in the form of Daze that is pretty useful and can potentially trigger with every hit. You get that level 1. Nice start right away. And Oath of Vengeance is also going to pair up the best with our Sorcerer. And why? Well, it will become obvious to you as the video progresses. So for stats, with this multi-class build, we have a character that benefits from strength in its physical attacks, as well as charisma for its spell-based attacks, with various synergies in between, where our charisma is also going to benefit our physical hits through some gear that we will utilize. So basically we spec like this. Then 14 constitution for the sustain and 12 dexterity, because you really don't want to dump dexterity on a frontliner. Even when it's like a hybrid mage and fighter character like this, we definitely want that initiative bonus. This is a build where you definitely want to go as fast as possible in the combat cycle. We then also keep wisdom at 10 to not get penalties for wisdom saving throws against annoying CC. A lot of crowd control in the game is tied to a wisdom saving throw, so definitely keep it at 10 at the very least. However, these are just the starting stats. Ultimately, our stats will become like this, and you can respect your stats in this way immediately in Act 3 after obtaining the Gauntlets of the Hill Giant Strength, which will grant us 23 strength. So we can dump it to 8 in character creation, get 17 charisma instead, which will become 20 charisma, as you will want to give it the Hag's Hair in Act 1, hence why we placed it initially on an odd level as well with the first stat distribution and the +2 bonus from the Mirror of Laws in Act 3, giving us 20 charisma in total. Then 16 constitution as well for the sustain, and we will be able to get 14 dexterity as well this way, which will help out even more with our initiative. Okay, now that we have discussed stats, it is time to start proceeding into leveling, because we cannot wait, we have to start killing everything. Right away at level 2, we unlock a key component of being a Paladin, Divine Smite. Make sure to enable reactions and the ask prompt in the in-game menu. This is absolutely important and critical in my opinion. This way you will be able to manipulate on which attacks all your Divine Smites will proc, as if left uncontrolled, you might quickly burn through your spell slots on targets you don't really want to spend your Divine Smites on. So for instance, if you just want to save the Divine Smites for critical hits to get the most damage and conserve spell slots like that, this will provide a way in doing so. It's just an example. At level 2, you also get to choose a fighting style, and in my opinion, you either want defense or great weapon fighting. I'm personally going with great weapon fighting just to make our damage output better all across the board. You also get 4 spells to prepare. No-brainers are going to be Command, one of the best spells in the game. Command helps out with giving you advantage, controlling your enemies, letting them flee, just gives you a lot of utility in combat. And Bless as well, it's just too good for making us hit more. And then we fill up the remainder of our spells with Thunderous Smite and Wrathful Smite. Now, a common misconception is that a Paladin learns these spells like, say, a Sorcerer, but in the character creation, you just choose which ones you want to access in combat. You actually already know all these spells as a Paladin. How convenient, right? So in the world, you can swap between spells at your convenience at any time. For example, Divine Favor and Shield of Faith are great alternatives here too for either offensive or defensive buffs respectively. Level 3, we get another spell to prepare, and here we finish our roster of smites, so we get Searing Smite. We also get useful spells like Hunter's Mark and Vow of Enmity, which is a new channel oath, which I will get into in a second when we get to early combat strategy. Level 4, we get a very important feat and a power spike, and we're going to get GWM, a no-brainer here. A lot more damage and a free extra attack for our bonus action, sign me up. And we're going to offset its attack roll penalty very efficiently, as you will also see in a second. And then we get another spell to prepare. We get Divine Favor for that extra damage potential. Level 5 is a huge power spike. We get that juicy extra attack, and here is where our power starts spiraling out of control. We also get the possibility to get our first level 2 smite, and we get it, Branding Smite, so prep that for sure. And being loyal to the Oath of Vengeance results into you getting 2 extremely powerful spells too, which is also part of the reason why I went with the Oath of Vengeance. We're talking Hold Person and Misty Step, which otherwise we would have to wait a longer time to get through our Sorcerer levels, and in that case it would be at the expense of 2 other spells we then wouldn't be able to get. But now we get them as early as level 5, and we can learn 2 other very useful spells later on as well. A win-win situation. Level 6 is another power spike, even if you don't initially really notice it, but it definitely is, trust me, because we get a very powerful aura of protection, which is going to help us out tremendously with negating getting CC'd, for example. And 8 is a really good option here if you don't have it yet in your team. Otherwise, protection from poison is, yeah, situationally decent with the various poisonous areas in the game, or magic weapon for a decent alternative to divine favor. Okay, so let's take a little break from the character creation. So how do we play this build in Act 1 and maybe Act 2 as well with the levels that we have so far? Well, first of all, always start the day by casting your aura of protection after every long rest. Then you generally want to start with the blast to get the attack roll buffs, especially early on, which will help greatly to offset Great Weapon Master's penalty, as well as just help your team to actually hit targets. We all know how annoying it is to miss everything in those first few levels, and blast is just one of the best spells in the game. And as a Vengeance Paladin, you get the Vow of Enmity, which you can cast to gain advantage and thus improve your hit chance even more. You can cast it even on yourself to get advantage versus every target you want to fight, and well, it comes as a bonus action, so needless to say, it is very, very strong. However, this might be a bug, as it was also in the game a year ago when I made content for this game, and it still hasn't been fixed a year later, as it doesn't really reflect what the description says, where it specifically hints at it being meant for a single target. So there's kind of a mismatch between the description and what you can do with it in game, but if it ever does get changed in fact, then in that case you could still target the main enemy in a fight with it to improve your hit chance against it, and in that case it would be still a great option for your Channel Oath. Alternatively, for your Channel Oath you can cast Inquisitor's Might as well for some extra damage and the potential to daze, which is very good too, as you get level 1 right from the get-go, or can use it in situations where you already have a decent hit chance. Outside of that, in those early levels, make sure to use Hunter's Mark as much as possible if you're not casting Blast or don't need it on your target, since it comes as a bonus action and thus can be paired very well with your main attacks. But as a Paladin, your combat strategy is going to be easy. Swing your big ass sword and destroy everything, and combine your attacks with Divine Smite through the earlier mentioned mechanic and just rake up that damage. Rinse and repeat. But to make things better, make sure to use our Vengeance Paladin's exclusive Hold Person as much as possible to get the CC, but more importantly those guaranteed crits, and combine that with your sword and your Divine Smites, and your damage is going to be disgusting. Especially the higher level you become, because you can upcast it and hold multiple persons at the same time. So that's going to be the main and core gameplay loop as a Paladin, and especially in those early levels because we don't have the Sorcerer in us yet. And with that, you will have a pretty easy time destroying everything, also on honor mode. And then to introduce some extra micro strategy, we also still have all of our 4 alternative smites, and these have niche use cases, but you definitely want to use them in those use cases, and that's also why we took them. Thunderous Smite is for when an enemy is near a ledge or has the potential to fall into something and instantly die. It is just too good for those scenarios. Searing Smite is a very good option against enemies that are weak against fire. Just examine your targets to know, and Searing Smite will scorch them and is a concentration based smite actually, so it will continuously keep burning your enemies, which is obviously going to be extra nice versus all these enemies that have a weakness against fire. Wrathful Smite for the CC based smite, so when you feel like you need some more control in the fight, but it's also a good way to pair damage and crowd control, as it will frighten your enemies. And finally, Branding Smite versus anything that can go invisible, and you will see the number of enemies that have the capability to do so increase towards the end of Act 1, and Act 2 it will ramp up even more, and later on as well. So very useful to make sure enemies won't annoy you by, not knowing where you have to go to defeat them. And we also have Misty Step to reposition and teleport ourselves at any time, defensively or offensively. This spell is a great tool. Overall, we have plenty of options, as you see, as early as Act 1. Now, one more thing which is going to offset our GWM's penalty and make our hit chance even better is our gear, which for our weapon comes in the form of the Svartal B Wound Seeker weapon, which you can get very early on in Act 1 if you rush towards Swalkeen Rest right here. This weapon is absolutely amazing for a Paladin, and in this build as well, it gives you extra hit chance. Basically, it rolls another die for your attack roll, and it's a two-handed +1 sword for Act 1 that you can obtain right away pretty much. It's an amazing weapon that a lot of people overlook in my opinion, so definitely get it for my build at the very least. Before you get it, or if you don't want to rush towards Swalkeen's Rest, you can still use the Everburn Blade. Since we have a good hybrid between Charisma and Strength with this build, we will utilize the Diadem of Arcane Synergy for our headpiece in Act 1, and we will use this for pretty pretty much the entire playthrough, so get it as fast as possible. It's just extra damage for all your weapon attacks, pretty much for free, since we will be able to apply conditions all the time on our enemies. There's no good cloak in Act 1, but if you went as a Dark Urge, you do in fact get the Deathstalker mantle, which is quite nice. Then for our chest piece, we do in fact have the heavy armor proficiency, so we can as early as Act 1 already become very tanky. First, make sure to rush and get a chainmail +1 in Act 1. Then when you move towards the Underdark, you can get the adamantine splint armor, which is an insanely tanky and great chest piece. Some people also just use this all the way till the very end of the game, and that says enough. Get that thing. For gauntlets, we grab the gloves of heroism. These were just meant for paladins, and they are very easily obtainable in Act 1. So we will get the nice benefits of the sustained based heroism spell on us all the time, and these are great early game gloves. For boots, we get the boots of striding. Again, we will be concentrating all the time through say Hunter's Mark or Blast or on niche use case based smites, so this one is a no-brainer for me. Excellent utility and helps with us not getting crowd controlled. For rings, in Act 1 we grab the caustic band for the extra damage, and in similar line of thinking for the boots that I chose, we also get the strange conduit ring for the extra damage as well. For amulet, it's going to be one of the best amulets in the game that's also obtainable in Act 1, the Brood Mother's Revenge, and we're going to wield this for the entirety of our playthrough. I've already talked about this amulet many times before, and it's extremely easy to proc even through our own kit, as we can use Lay of Hands to heal ourselves even though we aren't really heals, but this thing still gives us quite a nice chunk of health when we use it, and thus will also proc the amulet's effect, which is basically just extra poison damage. But outside of your own kit, you probably will have another source of healing in your team, and even if you just throw a potion at your Sorcadin, it will still proc. There are so many different ways to proc it, it's just a great amulet. Then finally for the bow, we grab the Bow of Awareness, which will help us out with extra initiative. And with that, we have discussed the first 6 levels, gear, everything, but this build truly starts to become unique and fun when we start getting them Sorcerer levels. So it's level 7 time, and we multi-class into Sorcerer the very moment that we hit that level 7. Cantrips, we take 4 utility-based cantrips, Shocking Grasp for the opportunity attack alleviation, Ray of Frost if you want to deny movement, Friends for the outside of combat shenanigans, and finally Minor Illusion. And Minor Illusion to potentially set up a nice nuke with our Storm Sorceries by making everyone group together near the illusion. Spells are going to be no-brainers for me. Magic Missiles for when we absolutely need to make sure that we're going to hit whatever we want to blast, and Shield. Shield is so insanely good on this build that it practically just feels like cheating. Why, you ask? Well, our AC is already going to be insanely high with this build, but with Shield we get another 5 AC in case of the rare occasion where the enemy does in fact get to us, but then we just simply say no with Shield on a reaction. No, you cannot touch me. It is the ultimate blue bullet. Too good. For subclass, we are absolutely going to go Storm Sorcery here, and you know it. It is overall the best for this type of build in my opinion, due to the utility and extra spells that you get for free, and it also right away gives you Fly. Fly comes on a bonus action after every spell cast, and this ability is so good too, because a bonus action that gives you insane mobility to reposition either offensively or defensively every single turn potentially. Yes, please. But what is even better about flying is that it doesn't proc opportunity attacks. So you can fly towards a target of interest, say a high priority target due to less HP, for example, that is hiding behind its teammates using your bonus action, and not get hit in the process while traveling to it, and then just annihilate it accordingly. And that's why Fly is so good, especially on a character like this that is tanky and a frontliner anyways. So spec into Storm Sorcery, please. Level 8, then we get Chromatic Orb for our other level 1 Sorcerer spell, predominantly because it comes with lightning and thunder variations that fit well with what we're going for here, and these variations have some nice minor extras like leaving an electrified surface or the thunder one hitting extra hard. And then we also unlock Meta Magic at level 8. You want to get Twin Magic for sure. This one is mandatory in my opinion, and the other option is flexible, but I like Distant Magic in case our target is very far away and we want to clutch it. Level 9 is another juicy level. We can get Mirror Image here, and this is a spell you want to cast in every combat cycle pretty much. It adds 9 AC, giving us a baseline of 29 AC as you can see here. Then with Shield we can reach up to 34 AC. Yes, you heard it right. 34 AC potential. Nothing is ever going to even scratch us. Cast these images as much as possible. It's pretty much going to make you immortal in combination with the Paladin's heavy armor background and my gear choices for the mid to late game that you will see in a second, and our shield spell. We get Quickened Magic as well here for our our third meta magic, and this opens up a lot of amazing plays. Cast a huge lightning strike or whatever powerful spell you want as a bonus action and combine that with your double swings that stack with Divine Smite. Oh boy, it is going to be explosive. Or just combine 2 different main spells or even 3 when considering haste in a single turn with this meta magic. I'm saying let's go. Your total damage potential in a single turn is going to be insane with it. Level 10 then, we get Light for our cantrip, nice bit of utility in darker areas, and for the other 2 levels there's not much we don't already need since we get both Hold Person and Misty Step as early as level 5. However, there's one incredible level 2 spell that is very overlooked, especially on honor mode, Enhance Ability. If you want to make sure you don't fail a very important ability check or even lose your entire honor mode run due to failing said ability check, then use this spell. Then we get our second feat, and it's going to be Savage Attacker. Savage Attacker is probably the most chosen Paladin feat if I have to make a guess, and there is a good reason for it. It synergizes extremely well with our many instances of melee based weapon attacks and damage. It basically rerolls all of that, and between the 2 die that are rolled, it always chooses the highest damage option. And all of that, cumulatively speaking, is obviously going to be a huge increase in damage output. So we grab this feat right away. Level 11 then, we grab Haste, which means 3 attacks on honor mode and 4 attacks on lower difficulty every single turn. And we can twin that with our twin meta magic and give it to another party member, which means it's extremely good for this build. Haste is also great on honor mode because you can use your normal attack for the 2 main weapon attacks with smites on top of them, but then use the haste given action for a nice destructive lightning spell, for example. Really good synergy. And then we swap out either our chromatic orb or enhanced ability if you're not convinced of its outside of combat utility that I talked about a second ago, and replace it with Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is one of the strongest lightning spells in the game. It has very high damage potential, and it's also an AoE type of spell, so we get it the moment we can actually get it. Level 12 then, the final level, we get another absolutely amazing level 3 spell, Counter Spell. And I'm not exaggerating when I call it an absolutely fantastic spell, because it grants you so much momentum in combat, it's just too good. That annoying spell from the enemy that can F over your entire party? No, we use Counter Spell for our reaction. Negate their spell, ruin their turn completely, and use the momentum to fully swing the battle in our favor. It's a mandatory spell for sure. Then we have to proceed to level 12. As a Storm Sorcerer, you get a lot of good stuff at this level. First of all, the Heart of the Storm aspects, both the resistance against lightning damage as well as extra AoE damage that we will get every time we cast thunder and lightning spells. So these are nice defensive and offensive aspects that we get as a bonus, and we get 5 very useful spells too, with Sleet Storm being excellent versus caster or caster groups. This spell can completely shut down mages and similar archetypes, so for that use case we definitely want to have it. And then we get Create Water thanks to our subclass as well to enhance all our lightning spells, which is great since it's our team here, and not only because we can use it with Lightning Bolt, but also with the new Call Lightning here that we get at level 12. And as you know, wet targets take double the lightning damage, and you can cast Create Water preemptively before engaging in combat, so you don't have to waste an action, and then just blast them with our lightning spells for amazing double damage. It is a very easy combo that deals a lot of damage. So talking about combos, how do we then play in the mid to late game when we are now a hybrid build and are half a sorcerer? Well, I already mentioned a bunch of strategies and things during leveling. You basically want to make sure mirror image is up as much as possible for the sustain, haste for the insane increase in DPS, and all the paladin buffs as earlier mentioned. And aside from that, we have the Create Water combo now with any of our lightning spells to absolutely dish out amazing damage. Call Lightning and Lightning Bolt are both AoE spells, so you can target many enemies at the same time. And ultimately, you want to combine that side of you with the paladin side of you, and make sure to keep swinging your big ass sword as much as possible as well, with your divine smites on top of them, and all the strategy discussed for the earlier parts of the game, which is still very relevant here. Smites scale up to level 4, so keep that in mind. You can, for example, use your level 5 spell slot for a massive lightning bolt, amplified by our target being wet, just to name an example. However, you can also convert your spell slots into sorcery points, or the other way around. What is also a nice product of leveling up is that Hold Person will scale with your higher level spell slots as well. So you can now start holding up to 4 persons, for example, if you upcast it and you like the control aspects. Hold Person is pretty much the strongest level 2 spell in the game in my opinion. It guarantees you all those juicy crits, and it CCs your enemies at the same time. As you might have noticed by now, there is a lot possible. And I would just experiment with everything I've said, but also make your own combos to see what you like the most. And ultimately, I can only guarantee you that the damage is going to be insane. You're going to kill a lot of enemies in a single turn, and you're going to tank and mitigate a lot of damage too at the same time. Your sustain and utility is going to be absolutely ridiculous with this build. Don't forget about those two things. The build is in fact also ultimately enhanced gear-wise, and thus it's important to lay out a full optimal progression path. And my progression path will go as following. For weapons, we go from the earlier mentioned Act 1 weapons into the Halberd of Vigilance in Act 2, very good two-handed +2 weapon, and then finish off with the best in slot for this build in Act 3 with the Baldurin's Giant Slayer. The Baldurin's Giant Slayer is an absolute unit. It doubles your damage from your strength modifier, comes with advantage on giant targets, and has a great ability called Enlarge that grants you extra HP and attack, so definitely make sure to always cast Enlarge before entering combat. And if that wasn't enough, you get a great exclusive attack as well called Topple the Folk, which makes any giant target a very easy target to destroy. For our helmet, we can keep using the Diadem of Arcane Synergy for all 3 acts, especially since our charisma will keep getting higher and higher, and thus it will keep granting us more damage. Alternatively, the Birthright hat in Act 3 is pretty good too. Cloaks, we get the Cloak of Protection in Act 2 and then swap it out for the Cloak of Displacement in Act 3. With this cloak and our AC, as you saw earlier, yeah, we are probably never going to get hit in the late game. Chest piece from the Adamantine Splinter Armor in Act 2, we swap it out for the Reaper's Embrace in Act 2 and then finish off with the Armor of Persistence in Act 3. Armor of Persistence is amazing. It makes us very tanky, and I'm not just talking about the AC, but also the Blade Ward and the resistance that you just get as a permanently cast spell. Yeah, it's glorious. Gloves, we replace the Act 1 Gloves of Heroism with the Act 2 Flawed Helda's Gloves for a nice bit of extra damage, and then finish it off in Act 3 with the Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength, granting us 23 strength without having to ever use potions, and granting us the opportunity to put more points in other abilities. 23 strength is really good, especially with our Baldurin's Giant Slayer, and in my opinion, using these gauntlets will give you a more relaxed and comfortable time than just chugging those elixirs and nobody got time for it. For our boots, we keep the Boots of Striding for Act 1 and 2. They are very good boots, and you can give the Misty Step giving boots to your other party members, but then in Act 3, we match up our chest piece with our boots, the Boots of Persistence. These are incredible boots, giving us great mobility and counters annoying terrain-based CC. For our bow, we keep the Bow of Awareness for Act 1 and 2, and then upgrade it in Act 3 with the even better initiative-giving bow, the Hellrider Longbow, which is actually going to be really good, because our ultra-tanky, hard-hitting, hard-damaging Sorcadin is going to have its turn very early on in the combat cycle. For our rings, we keep the Strange Conduit Ring for all 3 acts in my opinion, since it's pretty much always activated due to us utilizing concentration spells very well, but in Act 2, I would probably swap out the Caustic Band for Killer Sweetheart for our other ring, giving us the ability to guarantee a crit hit, which is very nice, as somewhere in Act 2 we will in fact unlock level 4 spell slots, so we can order a critical hit with a max level scaling crit Divine Smite on top of that, and thus have a huge turn 1 dealing a ton of damage. It's great for those scenarios where you're fighting a big boy and you want to upfront as much damage as possible. For the amulet, we keep the Broad Mother's Revenge for all 3 acts. Very good amulet, and it's extremely easy to proc it. And with that, we have discussed every single detail for this insanely fun and beautiful Storm Sorcadin build. Looking at my hotbar with this build just gives me all that dopamine. There's practically not a single bad spell or ability in all of this stuff. Just look at it and really take it in for a second. It's all the good juicy stuff. And as shown in the combat strategy, you are pretty much set for every single combat scenario and you will completely destroy everything. So trust me, you're going to have a blast playing with my build here, literally and figuratively. But please let me know your thoughts in the comments as well.